Good morning, everyone, and thanks for being with us today. To start us off, I'd like to turn things over to Theo Epstein for some opening remarks and to introduce the 55th manager in Chicago Cubs history.
Thank you for coming, everybody, and being here to share this very special day. Before we begin, I want to recognize David's parents, David and Jackie Ross. Thank you very much for being here. I know it means a lot to David. And also David's agents, Ryan Wykowski and Mark Pollack. Thank you guys for helping make this happen. When we began this search, it was clear to us that we were looking for somebody who would take a very proactive approach to leadership, somebody who would take it as a personal mission to create a winning environment around this clubhouse and in this organization, and somebody with natural gifts to lead players and lead an organization. David has always been very aware of the ingredients, all the little things that are necessary to create a winning environment. And behind the scenes, he's been very proactive in working to make sure those ingredients happen. The difficult conversations, building players' confidence when they're down, grounding players, keeping them grounded when things are going a little bit too well, providing energy when it's needed, making sure preparation and focus are there each and every single day. For David, it was never enough for him or for the teams he was on just to show up and hope that the talent would be enough to win. He took winning personally. He was very intentional about winning and making sure the bonds were created that would ensure that the whole was greater than the sum of the parts. The last 3 years, I've been able to see him start to process how he could apply some of those winning and leadership skills to his post-playing career, and how he would apply them if and when he were able to get an opportunity to manage a baseball club. We believe David has truly special gifts as a leader, and that he'll become a great manager, setting a new way forward and providing and cultivating all those ingredients that create a consistent winner. So with that said, it is my honor to introduce the 55th manager of the Chicago Cubs, David Ross.
Button this thing up, put it back on. It's been a while. All right. Thanks, Theo. First, I'd like to get a couple thank yous out of the way from me personally before we start questions. And I'm going to start, first of all, with the Ricketts family. Thank you guys so much for trusting in me. It's a huge honor that I take very seriously, representing your family name in this organization, and I hold that in very high regard, so thank you so much for that trust. Theo, Jed, the entire front office crew, it was a long process. I appreciate everything you guys put me through, made me better. Again, I take this job very seriously. I know there's a lot of work ahead, but I'm so honored to be able to lead such a talented group, and looking forward to that process. My family, friends, all that have reached out, text messages. I've had a lot of text messages I haven't been able to get back to yet, but I promise you I will. I'm a stickler about that, but I appreciate all the love and support from family and friends that have reached out. I really do appreciate that. my ESPN family, very important to me. Give me that opportunity to stay in the game, see some different organizations, see some different views. I really enjoyed that job. I'm gonna miss that family greatly. Former teammates, coaches, all who have helped to shape who I am, whether it's high school, little league, all the way up to now, players down here in the room. A lot of guys helped create who I am, the person I am today. Being able to sit in this seat, and I don't take that lightly. I appreciate all those conversations and talking baseball, and the guys who helped mold me. So thank you very much. My agents, Ryan and Mark, obviously, thank you guys so much for your hard work, tireless conversations and effort. That was a long process, but fun. You guys have been there since the beginning, so I appreciate that. Cubs fans, I mean, the way you've treated me over the years, I want to say publicly, thank you so much. A lot of love has come from them. I know it may not always be that way moving forward, but I understand that you guys have treated me so well, and I expect winning just like you do. I'm so excited to start this process of winning. Can't wait to get in that dugout, spring training. Very excited. A quick statement, I know there's just been a lot of questions about me and my lack of experience. I just want to say that I've had an eye on this my entire career. Guys have said fit this role. I'm super excited about being in this role. Last 3 years, my name's been thrown around a lot in the managerial ring, and took those 3 years to prepare for this moment. I'm super excited about it. I've been a part of a lot of winning teams. I know what winning looks like. There's things that I are going to expect out of the players, out of myself, that entail winning. Some of those things come with respect, trust, commitment, effort, hard work, and accountability. These things are important to me. My players can expect that from me, and I will expect that from them. I've always been asked the question, or I've always been a guy who asks questions to my teammates and managers, trying to soak in those answers, those experiences, preparing for this opportunity that I'm about to take on. There are many ways to get experience. I don't think everybody takes the same role, but I know I'm ready for this, and I appreciate Jed and Theo and the whole Cubs organization for trusting me in this. Here we go.
Thank you, David. At this point, we can open up for Q&A. We'll be circulating a wireless microphone for the Q&A, so please state your name and affiliation prior to asking a question. We can begin.
Hey, David. John Greenberg from The Athletic. The last 3 years, you said you learned a lot. What exactly did you learn? What details can you share with us working with the front office that you can take into as manager?
Well, just a lot of the day-to-day process, what goes into that daily process of getting ready for a game, whether it's, the collaboration with Joe. I think the minor league stuff was really cool for me, being a part of the draft. All the work that goes in from the front office standpoint, the behind-the-scenes stuff that you don't really see or ever gets any love, the scouts and how much they mean to the organization, top to bottom, coaches, top to bottom, you gain a lot more respect when you get to touch these people and see how much time and commitment and energy they put into their job. It's very important, and I understand now as the head of this, I'm representing all those guys, and there's a lot of responsibility in that, and it was a lot of fun to take on those challenges and learn. I've had more meetings that I can talk about in spring training and my time up here, the R&D guys, all the information they process to try to put these guys in the best situation to succeed. So there's a lot of avenues without going into detail, which we could be here all day, but there's a lot of information, a lot that goes on that's not seen on the field.
Do you think that helps more than being a coach, or as much, or is it in a different way than being a coach?
I would say in a different way, yeah. I mean, I've been in the dugout. I know what that looks like from a player and a coaching standpoint. In spring training, I got to do some coaching. I got to do a lot of that and help out with the catchers or look at the drill work, how that goes on. So I've touched my hand in just about every aspect. There was a long list that when I took the special assistant job that Theo presented with me of things that he would like for me to check off, and I checked almost all those boxes.
Megan Malky, CBS Chicago. With that being said, I know you don't know yet. What type of manager do you think you will be? Obviously, Joe was laid back. Theo said he wants somebody to be accountable. What type of manager?
Yeah, I think I'm a guy with those things I talked about, the respect, accountability, things I'm going to expect from my players. You know, I'm going to be a manager that wants to watch the game and see how it plays out. I don't think that I'll be this guy that bunts all the time or doesn't bunt. I'll be a guy that, you know, walks a guy every time with a base open, or sometimes, well, I think I'll play it as I did. When I sat in the seat as a player. You're still managing from a catching standpoint. So watch the game, see how it plays out. I think managers that kind of go in with a preset notion sometimes can get in trouble. So I'm going to watch the game, let it come to me, feel my way through it. I'm excited to actually figure out what that looks like.
Very friendly in the clubhouse. Everybody knows who you are. How difficult will it be to now navigate holding those close friends accountable?
Well, I know there's a big fun-loving Grandpa Rossi, theme out there, but if you ask any of my friends or ex-players, what kind of teammate I was, I didn't shy away from the tough conversations. I know there's a strong relationship with me and John Lester. If I would have been mic'd up for some of those conversations on the mound, it was not. They were rarely friendly conversations. So I think there's a little bit of a misconception of maybe the fun-loving Grandpa Rossi, which I love and I'm very thankful for, but I don't think that's me in the dugout as much as I would love to say that I'm that guy. I just, to the core, I'm a guy that has a lot of expectations when I come into work. I'm very professional. I expect professionalism, and those traits I talked about, the effort, the accountability. I don't shy away from having those tough conversations, good or bad. I know these guys. I hope to build their trust and respect. They will have mine. I hope to gain theirs. But the Grandpa Rossi thing is a little bit overblown. If you people that really know me, I think some of the media that sees me day to day knows that.
Kelly Crowell, NBC Sports Chicago. You've addressed kind of the coaching experience aspect, but for those that are wondering about moving this team forward and past 2016, because so much is still made of that, and you were obviously a huge part of it, how would you respond to that?
I would say I've been a part of winning, a lot in my career, not just here in Chicago in 2016, but in Boston in 2013. A lot of winning went on in Atlanta when I was there. I've been a part of winning almost my entire life, and I know what that looks like. And those are the expectations that I'm going to hold those guys accountable to, as well as myself, keeping these things that I believe in and seen throughout my career as a player, and the good and bad. I've seen a lot of losing too, and understand the losing ways. And when you see that, you have to say something and can't let things slide.
David, Bruce Levine,
Hey, Bruce.
6-7 scored after. Going through the interview process, were there any moments of doubt in your mind? Any moments of this will be a lot tougher than maybe I thought? Because we know that Theo and Jed are very thorough in their process and come at you different ways. So, at any of those moments where you had any doubt that this was going to be your job?
Not at all. I think it actually fueled me more when you get in front of these guys in a room, and there's a lot of friendships and respect that you have for this group. But when I was in that interview process, it was a very serious, a lot of guys sitting in front of me with iPads firing me questions, and the more they fired the questions and I talked about what I believe to the core, I knew that this is something I want to do because I was passionate. I sat up in my chair. I was getting emotional. It's like I could feel the fire that I had inside me, and then going home and having a minute to process that. And when you ask what you believe over and over again, it becomes real. And I didn't shy away from that. And the second interview, the same thing. It fueled me even more. I got done talking and was like, I'm tired of hearing myself talking, but it was so much fun to go through that process. I really did grow. If I didn't get this job, I was thankful for how much I grew in that process.
Hi, David. It's Steve Greenberg from the Sun-Times.
Hi, Steve.
You alluded to how your relationship with fans might at times, take on a different dynamic, let's call it. I'm thinking of scrutiny in general. You probably haven't ever really faced it directly because you spent most of your career as a backup catcher. How will you do with that? The scrutiny of your every move, the occasional criticism, not to mention the nonstop interactions with media. How do you think you'll do with all that?
Well, I hope I do well. I think with my background, and especially in places like Boston where the fans hold you accountable, I don't care if you're a starter or a backup, every day you step foot on that field, you're accountable to perform, and the expectations don't go away. As well as here in Chicago, I think they'll be very similar to, I've had an up and down career. I have started for a little bit and I've backed up, but fans don't care whether you're a backup or not. They expect greatness, and when you step on the field, they expect you to be prepared and to give them all you got, and that's the kind of manager I hope to be, and understand that the criticism comes with it. That's not something that I can control.
David, Mike Maiden,
Hey, Mike.
Maiden Productions. Just want to know, do you feel that there's an urgency for you to establish yourself as the manager of this team?
I mean, this is a pretty good start here. I'm excited to get back and learn. I've got a lot of learning to do. I've got a lot of homework. I've got a lot ahead of me. So I think that process come spring training will be very easy and seamless to understand, bring these guys in, have conversations. I plan on talking to the players at some point in the near future, maybe going and visiting a couple of those guys and having some conversations of what I'm going to expect and how to move forward best between us all. So I don't think that's going to be a problem for me.
Hey Ross, it's Sullivan from the Tribune.
Hey, sorry.
You and Theo and Jed too go way back. How do you get past the perception that you're just their guy and you want to be your own man? And Theo, you can answer this too. I mean, you're going to be making your own moves. How do you get past that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've known these guys for a long time, and I know what their expectations were. This is a Hall of Fame type front office that I get to be next to on a daily basis and learn. So I think it's a collaborative effort between us all, but I will be making my own decisions and continue feedback from the group. I think we've got a lot of smart people in the front office, Theo and Jed, obviously, but I'm going to be myself and figure out who I am and my passion on the field.
Yeah, I think if you're a front office and you want a puppet, you don't hire David Ross. I mean, anyone who knows Rossi knows that. Even as a player, I remember one time I didn't love how he was calling pitches for a certain young pitcher that we had just called up, and remember trying to find him, and we sat down for about 5 minutes in the dugout before a game, and I kind of shared with them, well, here's what we have on this pitcher, and here's what worked for him in the minor leagues, here's our scouting report, here's what the analytics say, and I was kind of expecting him, just because he was the backup catcher, to be like, oh, okay, yeah, I didn't know this guy, so I appreciate that. And instead, it was, some serious pushback right in my face. Well, here's in reality what it looks like he can and can't do, and here's why I'm doing this. And have you ever thought about it this way? Because this is what we need to do to win. I was like, okay, yep, gotcha. But it was the farthest thing from a puppet, and he is absolutely his own man. I think his teammates knew that when he was playing. We knew it in the front office. He's been that way as a special assistant, and I'm really proud and looking forward to partner with him. But I don't expect a yes man in the least. I'm looking forward to someone with his own ideas, especially strong conviction about winning and what winning looks like and how to build it. And it's not always going to be what we agree with. I think it is going to lead to conversations that makes us all better as an organization.
David, Jordan Bastion, FLB.com. You've had a lot of good managers throughout your playing career, and through this process, did you find yourself reflecting on what you liked about things they did, what you didn't, and what do you think you'll draw from some of those guys?
No doubt, I've had a lot of great managers: Bobby Cox, Terry Francona, Joe Madden. Won a championship. Troy Lovello was a bench coach. John Farrell. I've seen the good and bad and things that I've recognized as a player and understand. I think when you're a catcher especially, and you've got your eye on the managerial job at some point, everybody tells you you're going to be a great manager, you try to do that, you try to pull from those good and bad experiences. Some of the things I talk about, just communicating, the accountability, holding guys accountable when you see losing, making sure you point that out, whether it's a conversation in the office or just a kind word from Bobby Cox when he, I remember telling a story all the time to some people. I was facing Roy Halladay on a day game in Atlanta, and I was 0 for 4, I think, with 4 strikeouts, and I don't think I fouled a ball off. And Bobby came by and patted me. I walked by Bobby, and he patted me on the butt, like, man, he's pretty good today, isn't he, Rossi? And it actually turned my mindset about how terrible I was to maybe this guy's pretty darn good too. Just some of those things of finding those negative moments in players' mind and trying to flip those to a positive, try to find a positive in some tough situations when they talk about performance, because it's a really hard game, and I don't want to forget that.
David, Mark Carmen with the WGN. Just specifically with Joe, what's the biggest challenge in your mind in replacing him?
Joe, I've got a lot of respect for Joe. I'm actually going to take a lot of his managerial style and some of the things that he brought to the Cubs. I think I'd be remiss not to bring some of his style of how he went about things. I think Joe did a phenomenal job while he's here, but I'm just going to put my own stamp on it. I don't know exactly what that looks like yet, but some of those traits that I have is going to be a mixture of all those managers that I've been able to play for. I played for a lot of great ones and got a lot of winning experiences, and so I plan on mixing Joe in there heavy. It's going to be big shoes to fill, but I'm excited to put my stamp on this team.
Hi, David. David Schuster, WSCR Radio over here. How much say will you have or do you want to have in roster makeup, whether wanting more speed, athleticism, better defense, what have you?
I'm going to leave that. These guys are pretty darn good at their job. I think I've got enough on my plate when it comes to that stuff. I want as much input as they want from me and players that I like around the league or experience that I've had. The great thing about being with ESPN, you get to watch a lot of different big leaguers perform and who you like and their game, and you get to interact with them a little bit in the locker room and just see their personality. So I think background stuff's important, but they're really good at their job and putting together a roster, and we'll leave that to them.
David, Rick Morrissey from the Sun-Times. A team that wins a bunch of games at home and also loses a bunch of games on the road, what is that a reflection of?
I would just say that I just think that this group needs to find maybe a better routine on the road. I know that was a stickler this year. You can't always put your finger on the reasons for winning and losing, and especially in the different environments. But my goal is to just find a comfort on the road that these guys feel comfortable to perform their best and hold them accountable to those things. Wins and losses are going to come and go. The things that matter to me are these winning ways that I've seen throughout my career. If we bring that, the focus, the effort every single day to the field, then I'll be able to put my head down nice at night and sleep well. We're going to win some, we're going to lose some, we're going to make some errors, we're going to make mistakes, but those accountability factors that I talked about are important. I don't care if it's home or on the road.
Hey, David, Sahadi Sharma with The Athletic. Theo's talked about, there's leaders on this team, but perhaps an element is missing, perhaps one that you brought to the team when you were here. How can you extract that from certain players, bring that edge back to this group and that sense of urgency perhaps that it's lacking?
I want to stay true to who I am. I think these guys responded to me when I was here as a player. I don't think that will change as a manager. Just having those conversations with them, continually adjusting what is the daily routine and how communicating with these guys and what they expect from me and what I expect from them. I think, again, I go back to these winning ways that I've seen, and there's a lot of leaders in that clubhouse. I've seen it, I know these guys, and I think just communicating with them is going to be a big factor.
David, this is Omar from Univision, local media, right here. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You were talking about how important communication is to you. How are you going to go about managing the communication with the Hispanic ball players and all that? Joe Madden had this way of sometimes speaking Spanish to them. How are you going to establish that kind of relationship with the Hispanic ball players?
Yeah, I think it's important to, Javi and Stropey, the guys. I've had a lot of Hispanic teammates before, and I got a lot of Hispanic friends, obviously, from my years playing. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. I want to make sure that I talk to my Latin coaches and the guys that communicate them maybe a little bit more to me. I'm going to put a lot of emphasis on and delegate a lot to my coaches and expect a lot of feedback from them. I don't think that changes with where anybody's from.
Thank you.
David, this is Cheryl Raystat with WBEZ Radio. Talking about coaches, will there be any coaching change?
Great question. I've sent a text message to all the coaches. I'm going to reach out. I have not started that process yet. I've sent some texts to the coaches and I'm going to reach out to them. I've kind of been waiting for this day to move forward. I've had a lot of change in my life for the last couple of days and adjusting to that. So I'll know more of that going forward.
Hey David, Dan Roan from Channel 9. Hey, I wanted to ask you and Theo also, did you see these last 3 years as kind of a grooming process for this moment? Theo, I guess you could go first on that
I think, grooming is probably too strong a word because it presumes that, this was definitely going to happen. I'd say, it was exposing David to lots of different parts of the organization and that maybe you don't get to see as a player. And then also, we derived a lot of benefit from it as well, having his experience and his voice in our scouting meetings, in our R&D meetings, in the clubhouse a lot when he would come in. So I think in the end, the way it turned out, it did help prepare him in a unique way, but I wouldn't say he was being groomed for it because we didn't know until several days ago that he would be our choice for manager.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't think that in my mind this was something that I was preparing for, other than just my natural heart and where it's at and how I would do things if I was in charge. I've been doing that since I've been sitting on the bench the first year I got in the big leagues and talking to players and teammates and coaches. I've always been preparing this moment in my mind and how I would do things if you're in charge, and you never really know when that moment's going to be. But I try to take in as much information to help me in my ESPN job. It helped me communicate with the players. It helped me bridge the gap between front office and player relationships in my role. Was one of the things that I did. So I just was trying to soak up as much information as I possibly could in every avenue in this organization.
And I'll just add, he was really helpful to have in those meetings. For example, some of those spring training meetings with the R&D group proposing something that might make sense on paper, but we've found it difficult to apply to the team on the field. Rossi, having spent time with the R&D guys, understanding how they think, and having had the experience of playing and being on winning teams, can see both sides and help synthesize it into something that's actionable, a competitive advantage for the organization that he can, in his role, would then get coaches to start talking about and adopting and ultimately take it to the players. So that's an example of something that will serve him well as a manager, having had that experience. But he, now that he's seen both sides and lived it as a player, and now for 3 years at least living it a little bit as a front office guy, I think it'll prepare him really well for the manager role.
David Hoffman, the score. David. And Theo, this is for you too. How will you balance moving beyond 2016 and all that represented, the way Theo kind of identified as being important at the end of the season, with a new manager that basically represents all the glory from that season?
Yeah, I think it starts with the accountability, right? The winning ways that I've talked about over and over again. There's some good things from 2016 of some experiences that anybody would trade and have going in with their players, of experiencing those moments and coming through and having success in that moments. But it's not about 2016, it's the expectation of winning. It's about winning championships. It's about holding yourself accountable to the things that you found in winning. You have that experience. Let's emphasize those. Let's hold each other to a high standard, because I want to win a championship. I want to win multiple championships. I want to bring championships back to Chicago, and we've done that before. I've done that in another city, and I know what that looks like. And when you see the opposite, and I've been on some losing teams, when you see the opposite, you got to call it out as soon as possible.
Yeah, for me, I think a lot of references to 2016 internally and in the clubhouse have almost become a crutch, where when the game moves quickly. That's the next World Series champion. Well, after this World Series is over, next year the World Series champion, when they're crowned, it'll be 4 full years from when that happened. That's an entire generation of players. There's been a ton of change and growth in this game. Things aren't being done the same way team-wide that they were 4 years ago. Players are expected to be held to a higher standard now with how they prepare, the shape that they're in, the expectations for them individually compared to even 4 years ago. So when there's too much looking back to 2016, it can become a crutch individually and organizationally that prevents you from moving forward. And the way I've seen David handle it, the way he handled it in the interview, and the way he's lived it the last 3 years, is when people, whether it's in the front office or players, start to look back towards 2016 as a crutch or an excuse, or why don't we go back and do things the way we did then that helped us win. He's just saying, it's about moving forward. If you want to take something from 2016, take the grind from 2016, take the work and the preparation and the intensity and the team building that we did. That's fine. Those things are universal. But you can't look back. You have to look forward. Things are different now. Expectations are higher. And I just have all the confidence in the world that he's going to establish a new direction, a new voice that's completely looking forward and not at all looking backwards.
Hey Dave, Jesse Rogers, ESPN.
Hey, Jesse.
what do you think might come second nature for you as a first-time manager? Like, what do you think you have down, and what area of managing do you think you actually need the experience?
I think just the vibe in the dugout, how I carry myself, the communication skills, the relationships that get talked about a lot between this group. I think that's actually a bonus for me, is being able to be real with these guys and hold them to a high standard, which I know they hold themselves to. I'm not going to be telling them any different than what they already expect from themselves. And then just the in-game stuff, it's going to take me a minute. It's going to be important that my bench coach is one step ahead of me until I get that feel back. I've sat in the dugout, I've managed from the seat as a player, but doing it, calling the shots, and being the step of the head, being aware of the bullpen, how guys are used, all those things are going to be a learned task just because I've done it without having to do it, right? I've done it in my mind, now I've got to put it into practice.
David, Russ Dorsey, MLB.com. You had a unique perspective being with the organization, but also being away and looking at it from a wide lens with your ESPN obligations. When you were meeting with Theo and Jed over these last couple of weeks, what were some things you identified as being something that plagued this team in 2019?
From a bird's eye view, you're exactly right. It's a little bit different than the day-to-day grind and knowing exactly maybe where there's some weak areas. I just went back to the things that I've seen on the winning team and the vibe I got in the clubhouse the days I came in. It's kind of a unique perspective when you do have another job and coming in and out. You see when you're in the daily grind, you see maybe all the warts of the team and what may be going wrong, but then you get outside and you can say, wait a minute, this team's really, really good. So there's a lot of positives here in Chicago. A lot of great things are going on here, and it's just getting back to that true focus of what is important.
Hey Theo, this is for you. What during the process, the interview process, did you learn about David that you may not have known over the past however many years you've known him? And also, was there ever a time, I know you said you weren't grooming him, but was there ever a time you guys were sitting together at a game and you kind of managed the game while sitting next to you?
Yeah, the second one first. He spent a lot of games up in the box where baseball's easy. You're never wrong. It's going to go second guessing all the time. So, and we recognize that. It's a ridiculous way to watch a game. But it's been fun to hear him talk about what he would or wouldn't do in a given situation. Sort of more as a catcher, but also the big picture, not and having debates about best practices to win. What I learned about him that I didn't know. I said the second interview, we really focused on the areas where we had concerns. We did that with both candidates. We felt like his strengths were clear and we were really comfortable with them. And we wanted to press him in areas where we hadn't had as much experience or comfort. And that included giving him, some information and a chance to really prepare, to synthesize information, and we wanted to see how seriously he would take it and how he would process information, synthesize it, and then present it back to us and apply it to new situations. And he did it extraordinarily well, and spent a lot of time preparing. He was really serious. His presentation was great, speaking to his communication skills and his ability to be genuine, but also deliver, an important message in direct terms. And I hadn't really seen that side of him, but obviously when you're a manager, you do have to process a ton of information and then be able to apply it in the moment to new situations. And so the fact that he was able to do that under pressure is, we were joking upstairs, Rossi, the first interview, there was a lot of smiles and, went well, good feeling in the room. The second time, he said, I almost lost it. I walked in the room, you guys were all frowning, staring at your laptop. So we put it to him, in that second interview, and he really, he dominated that day. It was a really important day.
All right, this concludes.